Welcome to the College Football Podcast with your host, Alec. Today's show is a busy show. We will go over my game picks for Saturday, bets to make, bets not to make, upset picks, give an update on my MVP section for next year. Should the LSU Florida game be a night game? But let's get started here with my game picks. So far this week, for the week games during the week, Tuesday through Wednesday, we're 6-0 so far. But let's get started with the games on Saturday. Starting with Liberty versus UMass. I am going to go with Liberty. I think UMass is not a very good team, and I think Liberty's going to win this game by a lot. I don't think UMass is going to score a lot of points. So give me Liberty to win. Navy and Tulane. Both these teams could score a lot of points. I am going to go with Tulane to beat Navy. Navy played a good game against South Florida last week, but that's a South Florida team that's been ravaged with injuries the entire season. But like I just said, I'm going Tulane. Clemson and Pitt. Clemson and Pittsburgh. Give me Clemson. I think Pitt's magical undefeated season ended last year, and I think they have a chance to lose a couple more games down the stretch. Now, I could see them pulling the upset here, but I don't think it's going to happen. So give me Clemson. Texas and Arkansas. Little fact here. I had no idea this was a rivalry. I thought it was just a normal SEC game. Apparently, it's a rivalry. But I'm going with Texas. Western Kentucky and Louisiana Tech. And if you have any questions about game picks, upset picks, or bets you want to make, please feel free to ask them in the comment section down below. But back to Louisiana Tech and Western Kentucky. I am going to go with Western Kentucky here. Louisiana Tech has had a couple good games the last 2 weeks, but I like Western Kentucky's offense a lot more than I do the offense for Louisiana Tech. So give me Western Kentucky, Colorado, and Utah. This is Big Noon Saturday. On Saturday at noon, give me Colorado. Colorado has been a very nice surprise this year in year 2 under Dion, which, if you didn't see the podcast earlier in the week, I mentioned Dion might be leaving Colorado after this year to go somewhere else. But that's neither here nor there right now. I'm taking Colorado. Ohio State, Northwestern. Easiest pick of the week. Give me Ohio State to win. And I will talk about a bet I like, a parlay I like for the Ohio State game later on in the show. Then we've got Auburn and Louisiana Monroe. Give me Auburn. I think Auburn's going to run up the score here because they've got 2 more SEC games left after this week, and one of them's Alabama. So give me Auburn to beat Louisiana Monroe, and then we've got Coastal Carolina and Marshall. I'm going to take Marshall here. Coastal Carolina they were my preseason pick to win the Sun Belt, and I don't think it's going to happen. Give me Marshall. Murray State and Kentucky. Give me Kentucky. This is an easy game to pick. And then we get the Saturday midday games, 2 o'clock to 2:30. There's 4 of them. We got FAU and Temple. Give me FAU to beat Temple. Both of these teams are not particularly good. And I think either one of these coaches, if they lose this game, might be on the chopping block going into next week. Then you've got Mercer and Alabama. Give me Alabama to win against Mercer, which is obvious. Jacksonville State FIU. Give me Jacksonville State here. I think Jacksonville State beats the breaks off of Florida International. And then we've got Michigan State and Illinois. Give me Michigan State. Then we've got the Saturday late afternoon games, which is 3:30 to 6 o'clock. And we start with Sam Houston and Texas State. Give me Sam Houston. Then we've got Hawaii and Utah State. I like Hawaii. For some odd reason in this game, I like Utah State. So give me the Utah State. Give me Utah State. Then we've got Syracuse and Cal. Now, this is an East Coast team traveling across the country to the West Coast. I am going to go with the Syracuse Orange to beat Cal. Then we've got LSU and Florida, which I will briefly touch on here, and I'm going to talk about again later on in the show for a different reason. Give me LSU, even though I think there's a chance Florida keeps it somewhat. They keep it within shouting distance against LSU the entire game. Then we've got UVA and Virginia and Notre Dame. I'm taking Notre Dame here to beat UVA. So give me Notre Dame. South Florida and Charlotte. Give me South Florida, even though I'm not very. If I had to give this a percentage that USF wins, I'm going to say 65% because they have looked horrendous their last 3 games with Bryce Archie at quarterback. So give me USF to win. Boston College, SMU. I'm going to take SMU here to beat Boston College. Air Force, Oregon State. I like Air Force here. Oregon State has had a horribly awful season. So give me Air Force. Louisville and Stanford. Give me Louisville. I don't think Stanford's going to be able to stick around with Louisville. Louisville can score, and they can score in bunches. Then we've got Penn State and Purdue. Now, I'm taking Penn State here, but watch out for Purdue to play spoiler and beat Penn State and ruin Penn State's chances of maybe getting into the playoff. Does it happen? No. I think Penn State wins. Then we've got Troy and Georgia State. Troy and Georgia Southern. Give me Georgia Southern. James Madison and Old Dominion. I'm going to take James Madison. Then we've got Baylor and West Virginia. I'm taking West Virginia here. And as well as MVPs, if you're in here, these games that I'm picking on, you can take the picks I give out, or you can make your own. Then we've got Nebraska and USC. Give me Nebraska to beat USC. Because USC just made a quarterback change, and it sounds like Miller Moss might hop into transfer portal at the end of the year. Then we've got Arkansas State and Georgia State. It's a battle of the state schools. And I'm going to take Georgia State. Then we've got Rutgers and Maryland. I think I'm very confident that Rutgers wins this game. So MVPs, I would roll with Rutgers. Then we get to the primetime games for Saturday. And we've got the first one is Arizona State and Kansas State. Give me Kansas State to beat Arizona State. Second one is South Alabama and Louisiana. Give me South Alabama to beat Louisiana. Then you've got Southern Miss and Texas State. I'm going to go with Texas State to beat Southern Miss because Southern Miss is looking for a new head football coach. And then we've got, this is my personal favorite game of the week, Boise State, San Jose State. And if you're going to watch this game, watch Ashton Genty, the running back for Boise State. Front runner for the Heisman. I think Boise State wins this game, but I think San Jose State might keep it close. Then we've got the big one between the hedges, Georgia, Tennessee. Now, I'm going to briefly touch on this game. I think Georgia should win this game, but will they? If Carson Beck plays a clean game, Georgia wins. If he doesn't play a clean game and he continues his trend from the last 3 games, which people are saying is the Hannah Cavender curse. Hannah Cavender curse, who is, I guess, Carson Beck's girlfriend. Then I think that give me Tennessee. I think Tennessee wins this game. I know I stressed that out a little too long. Give me Tennessee. We got Oregon and Wisconsin. This is going to be a good game in the Big Ten. Give me Oregon to beat Wisconsin. Then we've got North Carolina and Wake Forest. I really want to go Wake, but I just can't. Give me North Carolina because we know Mac Brown's probably going to end up retiring at the end of the season. So why don't we give Mac Brown a few more wins to go out as a first ballot Hall of Famer for college football head coaches? Then we've got Iowa State in Cincinnati. Give me Iowa State to bounce back after that tough loss they had last week. And then we've got Memphis and UAB. Give me Memphis to beat UAB. And then we've got Washington State and New Mexico. Give me Washington State. Kansas, BYU. I'm going to say something about this game. And I want to know what y'all think. I think this is a trap game for BYU. We saw last week against Utah how close they came to losing. Is it going to happen this week where they end up falling into the trap and this time they don't get lucky because of officiating? I don't think so. Not so fast, my friend. Give me BYU. And then San Diego State, UNLV. Easy game for me. Give me UNLV. Now, we get to my bets to make and bets not to make for college football this week. Point spreads, I am staying away from this week because I feel like they're too high. First one is Kentucky minus 38.5 against Murray State. Now, if you want to take this, you can, but I highly recommend that you don't take the point spread of the Kentucky Murray State game. Because we all know Kentucky's probably going to cover this easily. So that's the reason to stay away from it. Because there's the off chance that Kentucky scores less than the 38 and they still cover, but you don't get your money. Then the second one is Penn State minus 28.5 against Purdue. Now, like I said earlier, be careful when picking what your point spreads are what your point spreads are you want to play. If you want to do Penn State, I would take them on the money line. I would not take the spread. Same thing goes for the last one. UNLV is a 20.5 point favorite against San Diego State. I would stay away from the spread at all costs if you can. If you can't and you really feel the need to take UNLV plus the spread, because they're favored. So minus the 20.5 for UNLV, you could do it. But then again, if it ends up backfiring and they lose, I just gotta say that I warned you. Here are some point totals to avoid this week. First one being Washington State and New Mexico. Do not bet over. If I'm going to bet on anything with the New Mexico-Washington State game, do not bet the total. 72 points, too high. Way too high. And I've learned from past experience, when the total is over 70, do not bet the total. Next one is North Texas and UTSA tomorrow night. Do not bet the over or under of 72.5. Stay away from it. There's better games on the slate that you can get at a bargain discount for half the price of what you would get if you were gonna bet over the total on North Texas and UTSA. And here's some over-under bets that I would bet on personally. First one is bet over 54.5 points in the Pitt versus Clemson game. I think there's going to be a lot of scoring in the Pitt-Clemson game on Saturday. I really do. So that's why I like betting the over. Next one, bet over 44 points in the Ohio State Northwestern game. I think Ohio State's going to put up at least 30. So I like the over there. Bet under 51 points in the FAU Temple game, which is on Saturday. Both these teams are horrible when it comes to scoring. Just look at FAU against South Florida a couple weeks back. We did that game. FAU only scored 21 points the entire game. And look at Temple. The highest amount of points they've scored this year, I believe, is 35. Can they get to 35 this week? Maybe. Does it happen? Highly unlikely. So I would bet under 51 points. And then my last thing is bet under 45 points in the Air Force Oregon State game. Air Force is the military academy, as we know. And what do the military academies like to do? Run the football. Run. Unless you're Army or Navy, who have all of a sudden decided, okay, it's okay to throw the football. But I like betting the under in the Oregon State Air Force game. And now here's a parlay that I would make. The first leg of the parlay is the Ohio State money line, which right now is at 9,000 minus 9,091. I would take that along with Jeremiah Smith over 84.5 receiving yards. He has hit on this prop over 62% of the time this year. And then the last one is take Colorado minus 11.5 to cover the spread against Utah. So that is Ohio State money line, Jeremiah Smith over 84.5 receiving yards, and Colorado minus 11.5. And now we are going to go over my upset picks, cover picks, and over-unders. And we start with my upsets. We start with the upsets I have for the MVPs. My first upset is Utah State plus 2.5 to upset Hawaii. This one should happen. Will it? I really hope it does. And believe me, I will be keeping everybody updated on our upset picks, all of our picks, whether it be game picks, upset picks, over, under, picks against the spread. Be looking out for that on Twitter and YouTube in the community polls. But back to the program. So anyway, I think Utah State pulls this off. Second upset is Troy plus 7.5 to upset Georgia Southern. I know I said Georgia Southern wins, but I think there's an outside chance Troy might be able to pull the upset. And then the last one is, and we've been burned by this team twice. And we were gonna take them a third time against Liberty, but we went with somebody else because we felt like they weren't gonna do it. It's Kennesaw State plus 15.5 to upset Sam Houston. And yes, like I said, we took Sam Houston, but I think Kennesaw State's starting to figure it out. I think there's an opportunity here for said Kennesaw State to upset Sam Houston. Then we've got our picks against the spread. We first got Florida plus 4 to cover against LSU. This one, I think, might happen depending on if DJ Lagway's back for Florida. If not, then we can just book it as a fail because I don't trust the Florida quarterback. I don't trust the third string Florida quarterback. If Lagway's in, it's a done formality that Florida's going to cover the spread. Number 2, Nebraska plus 9 to cover against USC and win outright. I like what Matt Rule did this past week, naming former Houston and West Virginia coach Dana Holgorsen the new offensive coordinator. So I'm taking Nebraska plus the 9 to cover. And then we've got Wisconsin plus 14 to cover the spread against Oregon. I think this one's going to happen somehow. And then now we get to our over-under picks. Our first one is San Diego State versus UNLV. The total is 54. And I think we need to take over 54 points in the UNLV San Diego State game. I think there's going to be a lot of scoring, and there's a very good chance that the over hits here. Second one is Cincinnati, Iowa State, 53.5 is the total. I am leaning heavily on taking the over. in the Iowa State-Cincinnati game. And then our last one is Arkansas State, Georgia State. The total is 59.5. To me, that's too high to take the over. I'm taking under 59.5. In the Arkansas State, Georgia State game. And now I'm going to elaborate a lot on this one. Should LSU versus Florida be a night game? Yes, I think it should. If you look back over recent history, every year LSU and Florida have played, pretty much half the time, the game has been a night game. And why all of a sudden this year did they decide to put it as a 3:30 kickoff? I think the main reason they decided to do it as a 3:30 kickoff game this year is because of Tennessee, Georgia. That's the only reason I think it's a 3:30 game and not 7. And both teams are good. Don't get me wrong. LSU and Florida are both good. But I think it should have been a night game. And I don't know what the SEC is doing. You can have 2 big games at night. Put LSU, Florida on ESPN if you don't have any other games. Or see if you can get it on the SEC network in the night slot. Because there's a few other games that I would switch out of the night slot and flex to 3:30. Because I don't think they're going to be much of a game. But let me know what you think about that down in the comments. And I think, like I said earlier, I do think LSU wins this game, but I think there's an avenue where Florida covers the spread or maybe even wins outright. And for those of you that don't know, I started doing an MVP section last year, this season actually, for college football. And we've had rousing success. We're going to keep it next year, but it's going to change a little bit. Instead of just getting upset picks against the spread, you're going to get my MVP locks, MVP leans, and a lot more next year with the MVP section. And it will be on a chart that's exclusive to everybody on YouTube. And the way to join and be an MVP is subscribe. That is the quickest way to become an MVP to this YouTube channel is subscribing. Which I appreciate everybody that has subscribed. If you haven't subscribed yet, what are you doing? I know you're going to love the daily NFL, college football, MLB, NBA, on occasion hockey content that we put out. And next year, I'm going to be taking the channel to not a football game, but probably a concert. And also go follow over on TikTok. We go live there 4 times a week. And we talk about college football. We talk about the NFL. And also, I know it's not a slide on here, but there is new merch available on the website. It is the College Football Podcast newest merch, and it has all the podcast stops from this year, which we went to Virginia, Blacksburg, and last year when we went to Columbus. Plus, it tells you where we're going 2026 through 2030, which I haven't announced yet, but if you buy one of those shirts or any piece of merch, you will get a little sneak peek of where I'm planning on going 2026 through 2030. And I'm going to tell you, one of them, I'm not real thrilled to go because they're Ohio State, big rivals with Ohio State. But I made a bet with everybody in the preseason. If one of my over-under picks on what my win total picks doesn't hit, I had to go to a certain stadium in 2026 for a football game. And you will see what state it is. And that probably gives the school away if you buy a piece of the merch, which is up on the website, the College Football Podcast website. But I think that's actually, no, I'm going to open it up to questions now. If you have any questions, please put your questions down below. This is the Q&A part of the video. Go ahead and ask your questions. They could be about college football. They could be about the NFL. They could be about fantasy football. Or they could even be about the NBA.